All right, so we are talking first about the Alec Baldwin shooting that happened on the set of Rust. So kind of a little backstory here, in case you haven't been following. Actor Alec Baldwin was given a prop gun that he was told was, quote, cold, which means it's, not loaded with live ammunition. So he was then showing the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, how he was going to draw the revolver. It said that... Right now, it said that the gun was a Colt 45, an antiquated gun, but he was showing her how he was going to pull it, and it reportedly went off, killed her, and injured Joel Souza, who has been released from the hospital, but she has passed away. And the backstory just kind of continues here. The AP reports that in 2019, another crew member, Maggie Gall, had filed an internal complaint against Dave Halls, and Dave Halls is the one who gave the gun, saying that he didn't maintain a safe work environment. The gun was loaded with live rounds, and so he was... My issue here is that when you pick up a gun, and I know that he was on a set, and I know that, I imagine there was no ill intent behind it, but when you pick up a gun, the number one rule of gun safety is you do not point it at someone. You do not point it at someone if you don't intend to shoot at them. And again, this was a movie set. There was not supposed to be any live rounds, but that's also, the second rule. You check to see if it's loaded, but you handle a gun, whether it's loaded or unloaded, in that manner. And so I saw someone post, where was the gun safety guy? And when you pick up the gun, you become the gun safety guy. So that's kind of one of my biggest issues with it. And Alec Baldwin is someone who repeatedly talks about the Second Amendment and how it needs to be amended and changed because you shouldn't be allowed to buy as many guns as you want, essentially. And it's interesting that he profits off of gun movies constantly. And again, I know this was a terrible, tragic accident. I'm not saying he was intending or any kind of malicious intent. But I think there needs to be more of a push for gun safety. Not just guns, not just no guns, because that's not right either, but gun safety.
Yeah. I don't blame Alec Baldwin for any of this. I don't. This is a tragic thing.
Yeah.
I will tell you that there's some interesting statistics here that I'll give you in a second that I found. The unfortunate situation with the woman who died, her father came out over the weekend and said he does not blame Alec Baldwin. But this company seems to have a few issues.
Yep.
6 members walked off the set a few days before this incident because of bad pay and bad housing. There also was concerns about safety on the set through the whole shooting of this.
Right.
So this company, this Rust movie production company, that's the name of their company, I think they've got some issues here.
I agree.
I think they've got some issues. I don't think Alec Baldwin in any way, shape, or form should be liable for anything that happened on that set. But I think Rust movie production company, I think there's some real issues there.
For me, it's a little bit of a struggle, and I know I already went into this, but if you're going to pick up a gun, knowing what's in there, I think is so important. I'm not saying that. But
if he's told that there's nothing in there, and he's getting ready for a scene, the guy's not a gun guy. He's not this. He's not that. He's an actor.
Right.
And so I just completely take him off the hook. I'm sure, I would relate it to this, and we got to go on to the next subject, but I'll relate it to this. A guy's driving down the road completely sober in the middle of the night, and some kid runs out in front of him because he didn't look both ways, and the guy didn't see him, and he hits him and kills him.
It's manslaughter.
And the point of the matter is, I feel so bad for the kid that died, but I also feel bad for the driver,
right?
Because he had no intent to do that.
Of course not, but it is still manslaughter. A lot of times you still do get charged. I mean, that's like an accidental discharge, even if you do have a gun, even if you do know that it's loaded, if there's an accidental discharge, there's still usually, and whether it might not be a criminal charge, but usually there are still charges filed.
We can keep up with it, but my view is Alec Baldwin's not going to be charged with anything. So, and this movie's probably not going to happen. So,
yeah, it's interesting.
Nor should it.
Yeah.
Nor should it.
Yeah.
They should just shut the whole thing down, and this production company needs to figure out their deal.
I agree. I'm curious if Halls is going to be charged with anything.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on to subject number 2, the Virginia gubernatorial election. This is one that you know well.
Well, as I stated on a show before this, I've known Terry McAuliffe for a long time. We grew up in the same upstate New York City. We went to rival high schools. I feel bad for Terry. And I'll tell you why I feel bad for Terry. Because the Biden administration's numbers are really affecting this race. These off-election races are always hard for the incumbent anyway. But now with the mess that's on Biden's plate, this has really hurt Terry. I only go back to, I know the guy. He's a good guy. He's a great family guy. He was a good first-term governor. In Virginia, for those of you that don't follow it, they have the weirdest laws ever. I think they're the only state that you can only serve one term, then you have to sit out a term, and then you can run again. For me, this race has gotten so much publicity. Terry's a household name, and I believe he's, in the end, going to win. If he wins, this is really going to help him run for president in 2024 because this has gotten an incredible amount of notoriety. He made a mistake in the debates where he talked about parents not having a role with their child's curriculum. That was a huge mistake.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the statistics, and according to The Hill, they were exactly tied in one of the most recent polls. It was 48.3% on both sides, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, you rarely ever see it down to the, tenth of a percent. And to what you were saying, people in Virginia, from Republicans to Democrats, are 48.7% to 47.9%. So it's a really close race. CNN reports that the Virginia race usually has a good track record for foretelling the national environment a year later, kind of what you're saying again. So it's interesting. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen November 2nd.
Yeah, and the latest controversy that came out yesterday, and this has nothing to do with Terry. Kamala Harris came to campaign with him. Barack Obama, the former president, was there over the weekend. Kamala Harris comes out, makes a video, and it's played in African-American churches, and it's a political video. And the talk today was, does that take away the tax-exempt status of these African-American churches? I'm not sure I would have done that. I'm just not sure I would have done that. That just, to me, churches are there for a different reason. And I understand that in the African-American community, unlike other communities, they bond together, and this is important to them. And I get all that. But I'm not sure that I would have done that if I was running Terry's campaign, which I am not. But Terry McAuliffe's a good guy. I'll talk a little bit more about it next week. I hope he wins, but it's going to be right down to the wire.
Interested to see for sure.
Yeah, okay.
So our next topic, we are looking, did Fauci lie to Congress? So this has to do with the NIH, if they used tax dollars to fund the Chinese gain-of-function research on bats that were infected with coronavirus. I'll let you hit this off.
This is, again, a political hot football. Rand Paul, the senator, one of the senators from Tennessee, believes that Fauci did lie to Congress. But the average person doesn't really even know what gain of function is.
I didn't.
So let me read from this. I looked it up. Gain of function is medical research that genetically alters an organism in a way that may enhance its biological function, the gene. Okay? What does that mean?
I the same thing as you. I was kind of looking up what it meant. It refers to, and I found another definition, a serial passaging of microorganisms to increase their transmissibility, virulence, and immunogenicity. I hope I'm saying that right. Immunogenicity. And basically what this does is it's working with the coronavirus more. It's genetically altering it. It's making it, it's adding funding to this, possibly this Wuhan lab where we've talked multiple times about the origin, and we're adding in more research into this without being completely transparent to the American people. And I think that's the biggest issue, is that, first off, it's a felony to lie to Congress. And I'm not saying that Fauci lied.
We don't know whether he lied or not, Sarah.
But did he omit important information?
Here's what we do know. An NIH official appeared to confirm that the taxpayer dollars were used for the research in the lab for gain of function. This came out of the NIH last week.
Yep.
So that appears to be a statement now coming out that contradicts some of what Anthony Fauci said in front of Congress. Okay.
And that's not all. There was a lot more too. So a report from the White Coast Waste Project found through a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that the NIAID, which the NIH, is overseas, found that more than $400,000 of that was spent on canine experiments. And one of them that I think has gone viral on social media, you've probably seen it, where beagles are essentially infected with parasites via biting flies. So people are naturally enraged about this. And yesterday on Twitter, I saw that the trend, one of the top trending hashtags was #ArrestFauci.
All right. To Fauci's defense, so we try to balance this out a little bit. He's got an impossible job. He didn't get along with Trump. He has said some controversial things. His job is not easy because he's asked to speak specifically about things where there are no defined answers. This gets back to our situation earlier. No one really knows about everything to do with this virus, and no one really knows about the vaccines. He's asked to be specific about things that I don't think he understands. Now, taking that away, and it's become a political football. He's been used by both sides as a political football. At the same time, he's changed his mind 16 times. There's been all kinds of stuff. But getting back to this one, did he in fact know that taxpayer dollars funded that lab and didn't say it in front of the hearing in front of Congress? He got pressed really hard by Rand Paul. So this is all going to come out because Rand Paul and the Republican senators are not going to let this go. Fauci has pretty much the same job that this Jen Psaki has. When he goes out there, it's impossible to try to defend some of these things. And Martha Stewart went to jail because she didn't tell the truth. It wasn't what she did. It was not telling the truth. If Fauci funded this stuff, I wish he would have just said, yes, we funded it, but this was nowhere near our intent.
Right.
I don't know how this is all going to come out, but we're going to keep an eye on this because this one's a pretty serious deal if it's true.
I think so. And I think that kind of touching more on this, Rand said that the Justice Department, Fauci has been referred to the Justice Department, which is what you have to do officially. But so far it's just sitting there. So who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, our next subject, the school board letter. So on Friday, a little bit of background, and then I'm going to let you kick it off. So on Friday, the National School Board Association issued an apology after sending a separate letter initially to the Biden administration saying that parents' actions could be seen as domestic terrorism. So the parents that they're talking about, of course, are the ones that were protesting and speaking out at some of the more heated board meetings, especially in Oregon, where this originated, what they're being taught in the curriculum. And because of their letter, Attorney General Garland had then instructed the FBI to look into the threats, and now they're saying that the DOJ officials are happy with this apology letter that came out. But that's kind of the background of what happened. So Frank, I'm gonna let you kick it off.
Yeah, no, this gets back to the same thing on a subject that we just covered, about gain of function. What is CRT, right? So I did a lot of research of what is it? Critical race theory. And this is the definition that I was able to really kind of tie down, rests on the premise that racial bias is baked into the U.S. laws and institutions. It's baked into our institutions and our laws in the U.S. That is what the critical race theory whole movement is all about. Not to be confused with ethical studies, which I think you talked about on one of our shows that you actually took. You took it in either high school or college?
Yeah, we took ethnicity.
I think that
classes.
is hugely important.
Yeah.
I think we should understand more about the African Americans' plight. I think we should understand more about how their history has now created the situation in 2021.
I think that's across the board for all the nations that have come here, because America is the melting pot. Everyone essentially is an immigrant, unless you are, of course, an indigenous person, a Native American here. But, the Asian Americans, the Italian Americans, the African Americans.
Right, but the African Americans were forced to come here in the beginning. So that has a little bit of a different spin.
Absolutely.
But the whole critical race theory issue, I think, is more about how are they going to teach it and how are the schools going to use it versus what it really is. Again, I get back to the ethical studies, which I think are tremendous. And I think that gives our young people an understanding about how the country was built. Okay?
The ethnic studies, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think, but we don't know much about the African American culture. We need to understand more about it. I think that would lend itself to understanding more about the African American people. I really believe that. This whole critical race theory, though, is a political football that's getting bounced around. And this one certainly is not going away anytime soon.
Well, and what's frustrating here is that the parents who were speaking out about what was being taught or what was happening in their school district, whatever it was in the curriculum, them being called domestic terrorists, I mean, that is completely...
It's terrible.
It's terrible because, I mean, maybe there was violence that occurred. You know, there was talk of people being arrested, but that's completely different than a domestic terrorist.
It's terrible.
It is.
No, but this shows
it's
the
a waste
division.
of time for the DOJ.
It shows our division in our country. But, you know, I've said this over and over, and I know we got to move on. I don't know how every vote goes along political lines. No way that 100 people all think the same about everything.
No.
That's just impossible. This is all being manipulated by the political parties. You know, and that's the problem. There's no trust on either side, Sarah. That's the problem with all of this. There's no trust on either side. Common sense tells me it's not the critical race theory as a subject. It's how is it going to be used? How is it going to be taught? Are they going to make white young kids feel like they're responsible for every problem that's happened in the African American community? How's it going to be used?
Right.
Because I think African Americans don't want that. They don't want that. So it's just there's no trust, and that's the problem in our society today.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and I think that parents should be able to speak out about their kids and what they're being taught.
Well, they certainly should have a role in their kids' education.
I think so.
Okay.
All right, our next subject. So in North Carolina, a high school football game banner became the subject, which a banner should never be the subject. So WIFR, which is a CBS affiliate in Charlotte, they ran this story about a sign that's causing a lot of controversy at a recent football game between two high schools in the district. So it was between Butler High School and Charlotte Catholic High School. Butler High School, the cheerleaders held a banner that said, "Sniff, sniff, you smell that, $privilege, $." And it was implying that the Charlotte Catholic High School students are privileged. And I was kind of reading one story about, you know, a single mom who's putting her kid through school and worked really hard. You know, every penny goes to be there. And she's like, you know, we're not privileged. Not everyone's privileged. But again, I think this goes back to coaches, administrators, parents. Did they know this was happening? Did they allow this? My question kind of here is it okay to make that kind of statement at a sporting event? Is it not okay?
These are just young kids. I mean, I chalk this one up as a semi-nothing burger. I mean, I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade. In some ways, was I privileged to be able to do that? I was. I don't even understand what the privileged side means. It could mean 7 different things, right? I had a mother and a father. I grew up in a blue-collar family. We didn't have any money, you know, but was I privileged to go to a great school? Yeah, I guess I was. You know, were there some inner-city kids that didn't get the education that I got? Yeah, it's true.
Right.
So, you know, I think, Sarah, this is a bunch about nothing. These are young kids that are just, you know, I don't know. They're just, they're getting rid of their own frustrations, and I think that's what this is about. If the parents were directly involved, the school board was directly involved, then that'd be a horse of a different color.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the Charlotte Mecklenburg School District said, that they're aware of the banner and the members and adults will be facing consequences, but they want to offer specific information. But it's interesting that, you know, kind of the principal of the Charlotte Catholic High School said, you know, he said there was an apology issued from some of the parents, and he said, you know, I'm not taking this to heart. You know, some people are obviously trying to voice their opinions in different ways. You know, hopefully we can all learn from this and kind of move forward.
I think this is a nothing burger compared to the unbelievable issues that we have on the table.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully it gets resolved nicely.